we're gonna do a cherry pie filling, canning it. So we're gonna use the fruit pie filling recipe out of the Ball New Book of Canning and Preserving. So we're doing sweet cherries. So I have my pot to make the cherry pie filling in, my little pot for warm water to keep the lids warm. I have my canning lids, my canning rings. This recipe I have prepared enough for 5 quarts, so these are the quart jars, but I always set up a jar extra, so we have 6. Canning funnel, my little canning spatula, the jar lifter, my ladle, measuring cup, measuring spoon, almond extract, so I'm using this since I have this on hand from another recipe, lemon juice, sugar, cinnamon, and this is 1 bag of the cherries. I have another bag too, and they were recently picked and I pitted them yesterday. Then I have my Fresh Tech canner, which is my electric water bath canner, which is currently going. And so now we'll get started. So to get started, we're going to put the jars in the canner because we want them to be warm when we fill them with the pie filling. Ball has a couple recipes for cherry pie filling. This one is the easier one, and I really didn't feel like doing 10 pounds of cherries at a time, so I'm doing this one instead. Those are all set and ready to go. So the pot I had seemed a little small to me since I'm going to do 2 bags of cherries, so I switched to my big pot that I really only use for canning. 1 bag of prepared cherries. And then here's the other. So for this recipe, I'm doing 5 quarts. I need 1/2 cup per quart, so 2.5 cups of sugar. We're going to turn it on heat to 1. Just going to get this up to a boil with the sugar, and then we'll add the flavorings. I'm going to fill up my little pot with water from the canner. And I'm going to throw my lids in and keep them warm and pliable for sealing. We're just going to hang out on the stove. This recipe, when it's done to actually make the cherry pie filling, you would drain some of the liquid, add cornstarch in a saucepan, bring to a boil, and then put into a pie, or use as a topping or filling. So right now we're getting ready to fill the jars, so we're going to pull our jars out of the canner. And they've all been hanging out on this right end of the canner. Set the jars on the dish towel. Now we're going to put the lid back on the canner. Get it all the way back up to high. Now we're going to fill the jars. So we got cherry pie filling, our warm lids, and our jars. So this recipe calls for a 1/2 inch headspace. So here's the 1/2 inch mark. I'm just going to hold it up. And it's going to be right to that lip. We're going to use our ladle because that makes filling much faster. It also makes me less likely to spill filling. So I filled it up to that lid. Now I'm going to take this little spatula and I'm going to go around and sort of push around, getting rid of all the air bubbles. Which this one really didn't have that issue, but you always want to do this because you want the correct headspace. If you have too much of a headspace, then more likely to get spoilage. Now I'm going to take a wet paper towel, wipe the rim, because we don't want anything contaminating the seal. So we're going to put a warm lid on top. And because these are really warm, I'm going to use a dish. Tighten that finger tight, and then go on to fill the next one. So you want to keep them upright, and place them around the canner, trying to space them equally. And you can see it's starting to get pretty full with these, so I'm just going to open the spigot, let it drain into the sink. This is why I always keep my canner right over the sink. So we have this problem. Just drain it and don't have to worry about the really hot boiling water. I'm going to drain a little more before I put this last one in. So we're going to move this one a little bit. Fit that last big jar. You don't want them too close because then they can hit each other in the canner. So we're still a little over the max fill. I'm going to let it drain a little bit. A little bit more. You can see the air is already siphoning out of them. And we're just gonna put it back on, let it to a boil, and then we're gonna boil these for 30 minutes. So, cherry pie filling has been processed for 30 minutes. Crank it along, and now we're gonna let it sit for 5 minutes. And the canner, with it off, to let it settle and seal properly. With the extra, I just threw it in one of the pint jars. It'll live in our fridge and get eaten up probably today or tomorrow, but at least this week. So, these have sat for 5 minutes in the canner with it off, so now they're ready to come out. So you want to always keep them upright. We're going to gently set them down on the dish towel. They look really good. So we're not going to poke them, we're not going to really touch them for at least 24 hours. So, as they seal, they will do a little ping, which you might hear. But we want the top to be down, and I'll show you on the one that I didn't can. So if it pops like this, it's not sealed. But we don't want to poke any of these because that could make them go down, and that could be a false seal. So I will check on them in 24 hours.